Singer, songwriter, guitarist, and fiddle player Bonnie Kellett is one of the busiest live performers in Australia, which I know because I've seen her play several times this year, between solo performances and touring with Amber Lawrence and many other shows. But this year, she's also found time to release her debut album, Hidden Spirit, and a completely new single, Bare Feet. So she manages to fit it all in, and I'm going to talk to her about it. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi, Sophie. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's a great pleasure because I have seen you play lots of times in different ways, and I know you're a very in-demand performer. So I'm wondering how many shows you have played this year, if you
Oh,
kept count, that is.
oh no, I have not kept count, although now I wish I had. But a lot. I think just last week alone, I was at 8 in a week. So it was, it's been a big year, and which I'm so grateful for because especially after the dreaded COVID times, it's just been so nice to be back on the road and back on the stages and to see so many people so much supporting live music and so positive about it, and just yeah, just to see that support and love for it out there has just been so nice.
Now, you have just come off a cruise ship because you're on cruising country, and Amber Lawrence, with whom you play as part of her band and also as her support act, she was on that cruise. But I imagine you probably had some other shows to do while you were there.
I did. So I was booked on there to do my own shows as well, which was really exciting, and did backing vocals for Amber Lawrence for her 2 shows as well, and I was able to do it in the finale as well, which was really exciting. But on top of that, Bill Chambers asked me to jump on and do a duet with him, and the Buckleys asked me to jump on and do some fiddle playing for a song. So yeah, and Duncan Toombs also asked me to jump up and sing a Shania song, and we love some Shania, right? So it was just one of the most incredible experience. That was my first cruise in general. I've never been on a cruise. So this was my first time doing both, and yeah, it was just such a great experience because you had the audience and the musicians, really bonding. We would all get up and go and watch each other perform and get on the dance floor, and everybody was on the dance floor and we all just had a great time. And I think that there is really something special to say for organizing such an incredible cruise like that with so many, country artists, especially Australian country artists that, so that we can keep growing and, keep getting out there and giving us, opportunities. And it's just really great to be a part of it.
I think the range of acts you've just mentioned who you played with demonstrates your versatility as an artist, but also suggests to me that once the Buckleys, Bill and Duncan, you were on the cruise, they're like, great, let's make
Yeah.
sure we can use her. So it must be great to have those connections, but also know that those people can look to you to join them.
It was I like it was so much fun. I saw Bill and Bill was like, I've played with Bill before and he goes, "Oh, you're on the cruise, can you do this duet with me? I'll give you the song, I'll give you the lyrics, we'll play it tomorrow." So
Great.
I was back in my room and I was learning on guitar and learning it quickly, and then it was wagon wheel with the Buckleys. So I've just put up a little snippet video on my socials of my time on there, and there's a little tiny moment where you can see me sitting on my bed practicing the violin. So that was wagon wheel for the Buckleys.
You're right. I've often wondered though with cruising country, whether there is any separation between the artist and the audience when you're not on stage. Because I tend to think, and I know the Tamworth Country Music Festival, everyone's kind of in the town together, but you do have your accommodation you can go back to. You're not on a ship together. So do you need to maintain a bit of distance just to keep your energy levels up for
No,
performance?
not at all. In fact, I actually really adored it. I found myself, it took me a while to kind of get used to it because, I mean, I'm still new on the scene, so I still feel like, people don't really recognize me. And so, when I kind of started noticing it on the cruise, I was actually really enjoying it, and walking past people and, saying hi, and people would come up to me and give me a hug and ask for photos. And I really enjoyed it. I found it so positive, and I somebody asked me how my cruise was going, and my answer to them was, I've been on in a space with people and artists who are just as passionate as in country music as I am, and everybody is just so positive. My heart is full. My heart is absolutely full. So yeah, and I brought my mum along, and she still lives in Adelaide. So it was really nice that I was able to bring her along and spend some time with her, because I don't get to go home to Adelaide too often. So having her there, and she's a huge fan of country music. She's been a big influence on me growing up, and her and dad, and so to bring her along to this, and to have her there was something really special, to have her experience it.
And there is a song on your album about your father, the humble hero, and the fiddle that he brought home for you. So what did your parents listen to when you were growing up that had an influence on you musically?
Oh, everything. And such a great question. And because a lot of the songs, you know, were a lot of just old time folky, uh, just what's the word? Just songbook songs. Because dad was big on jams. So
Right.
the only thing if dad was alive to be at Cruise Country, the only thing I don't think I would have been able to stop him from jumping on the stage, especially with Bill Chambers, because he was so much about just like, getting into, getting into a like around the fire, around the campfire, and just having a big jam with everybody. But I think that a lot of the time, there was a lot of country. So, there was a lot of Dolly Parton, and, Johnny Cash, and, all of those amazing famous people. And then, throw in a bit of Beatles, and throw in some, War of the Worlds, I
Yeah.
know some just very strange choices, but, yeah, I think that he took me along to a lot of Irish
Hmm.
jigs and things like that, where we would just basically play a whole lot of Irish songs, and fiddle songs. Casey Chambers, of course, was a big one on the list as well.
Yeah.
She was a big inspiration to me also growing up. So we had all her albums as well, and yeah, it was yeah,
And another South Australian too, because
another
she,
South
yep,
Australian.
yep, she spent some of her childhood on the Nullarbor, but some in South Australia.
That's right. That's right. She is actually the reason why I play guitar. So I played fiddle, from the age of 5, and when I was just about to go into high school, I met one of her cousins who at a folk festival, who was just singing all of her songs, and we became friends. And I heard all of Casey Chambers' songs through her, and um, when I went to high school, they told me I couldn't play violin in the school band. Um, that the violin couldn't be in the band, that I needed to pick another instrument. So I asked for singing, and they said, "Oh, we don't have any singing teachers. Pick another instrument." Uh, and I picked guitar,
Right.
because I'd been watching Casey Chambers' Cousin, and the first song that I ever learned was "Cry Like a Baby."
Ah, did you find the transition from violin to guitar tricky? Because they're not at all the same instrument.
Yeah, I at first wasn't so good on chords. I was
Mhm.
actually better on lead at first, because that was more like violin. Um, but I chose guitar because I wanted to sing, and I was like, well, if I can play my own instrument, and that will be able to help me sing, and I'll be able to have more opportunities, and eventually then become a songwriter as well. So, it's been a very lucky thing that, that the school told me I couldn't play violin, because, I picked up another instrument because of that.
So at the point at which you asked if voice could be your instrument, obviously you had been doing some singing, or you wanted to do some singing.
Yeah, yeah. My mum would definitely tell you that I could probably talk underwater. Um, I have always just sung. I actually didn't get proper lessons until pretty much I went to uni, and I studied a Bachelor of Music, and that was kind of the first proper lessons. I'd had kind of a couple of lessons here and there, but mostly self-taught, due to I think the violin, because you use so much of your ear, you know,
Hmm.
to hit your tone and things. So but yeah, singing's always been a bit something that I've loved and enjoyed. So yeah, it I think it just found its way in wherever it could. I just, you know, if I couldn't sing, then I'll play guitar and sing, you know.
Yeah. And then, in addition to your Bachelor of Music, I was interested to see that you did an advanced diploma in performing arts, and it was acting that you focused on. So I'm wondering, I'm sure there are skills you've taken from that into stage performance, but I'm wondering if you actually studied that for performance as a musical artist rather than wanting to become an actor.
That's a very, very good question. So yes, well, I wanted to become an actor. When I left school, I wanted to go into acting. That was kind of my goal. But I also loved musicals and I loved singing, and I just figured that they all kind of went in turn with each other anyway. And I do actually remember having a thought that came through my head in the first term of doing that acting course, which was which was what am I doing here? I want to sing, you know. I should be doing a music course, you know. And then I went, yeah, but you know, through acting, that will actually help me with my music. So I definitely don't regret that time. And I think that a lot of my storytelling with my songwriting comes from acting and being able to go into a character, even if that character is myself in that time where I was when I wrote the song, you know, you've got to go back there. Sometimes you don't want to go back there. Believe me, I've written some of those songs I've written, like Gaslight, you know, it's not a place I like going back to, but, you know, you've got to be able to go back into that space as a performer and then be able to come back out of it safely. I think that's also very important for anybody in any sort of performing arts industry. Um, and, you know, I think that also telling a story with an arc, you know, having a beginning, having a middle, having an end,
Mm.
um, and also just, yeah, basically having a reason why you're telling the story. I think that's why I love country music so much, is because it is a storytelling form of music. And you know, if you that's exactly what I love doing. I love being able to tell a story through the form of music, and having something to say, I think also is very important. So all of my songs, they have a meaning, they have something to say, they have a lesson, or they have a vision, or trying to help someone through. So for example, with Gaslight, the reason why I wrote Gaslight was, you know, music helped me through that time when I was going through that situation. So I really wanted to be able to gift that to anybody that might find themselves in a situation like that, that maybe my music might help them through it and might help them out of it and might help them see the light at the end of the tunnel.
And I guess also just that understanding you have of structuring a story, the beginning, middle, and end, and that what you were talking about with going into a character and being able to safely come out of it, that might influence how you choose to tell those stories in your songs and how you frame them. Because I would think that you are very aware of telling the story directly to someone who, as you said, might learn something from that experience or take something from it. So has it shaped your songwriting that way? In fact, were you songwriting before you studied performing arts, or did they happen, or did that start around the same time?
Yeah, yeah, great question. And to answer I'll answer it in two parts. The first part is yes, definitely, because I think that even though I tell like Hidden Spirit, I was going through a very difficult time. Actually, I have to. It's hard to kind of. Uh, I'll go back. I'll go back. So I never actually saw myself as a songwriter
Yeah.
until I went through a really difficult situation, and that was a relationship that I went through and the passing of my father.
Mhm.
And uh, I I was always very happy performing other people's work. So, you know, I was happy being given music and just giving that music a voice, whether it was my voice or the violin or performing or acting. I didn't see myself as a writer. Um, and then, but funnily enough, when I was actually in primary school, and beginning of high school, and all my English teachers were actually pushing me to do writing, but I just didn't see myself as a writer.
Mhm.
Um, and then, yeah, so I went through this very difficult time in a relationship that, wasn't a healthy relationship. And I got myself out of it. And the positive thing out of that relationship was that I found a voice.
Right.
And so Hidden Spirit in itself is very much a time capsule of something that I went through, about 6-ish years ago.
Mhm.
And it very much, every single song has a light at the end of the tunnel. So at no point did I want any of my songs to be, a negative or a downer or depressing. All
Mhm.
of it is, yes, this happened, but through strength, you get strength through adversity, and you learn life lessons, and you create a support network, and your vibe attracts your tribe. And if you get out of it, then you don't know what will happen. And very much for me, I went and saw my producer Govinda Doyle and said, you know, I have these songs and I don't know what the next step is.
Mhm.
And he helped me, create them into what Hidden Spirit is today. And, I wasn't expecting it to, to go number 2 on the ARIA charts, for example. So for that, that was a dream come true, that, that something like something that I created would
Mhm.
go that far. And it fills me with such joy. And to everybody who's come up to me and told me that it's touched them, or they've been there and it's helped them through it, I've already been having those conversations with people. And I feel like that was always what I set out to do. That was always the journey that I was meant to do. And so that, yeah, it just very much fills me with love.
Which is fantastic. And congratulations on the chart position and on the audience feedback, because I think most people who have a response to a performance or a song wouldn't tell the artist, just because I think most people are naturally shy about it. So I
Sure.
reckon for every one person who comes up, there are at least a dozen more for whom it's meant something. But I'm also thinking about the fact that the album documents a part in your life that was very difficult. So in a way, it would be tempting to just say, oh, well, I'm just going to put that there now and that's in the past. But of course, you're performing these songs. So has your relationship to the past changed a bit? Do you start to think of things a bit differently, or I guess deal with them differently, because you have this chance to essentially remake this story every time you perform the songs?
Well, because it was quite interesting, that when I started recording this album in January of 2020. So the years that I kind of went through these things was kind of 2017 to 2019, even 2020. But obviously we went into the I didn't have all the songs written though, actually, when some of the songs came through a little bit later, because I finished recording it in July of 2020. So there was a few new songs that kind of came in a little bit later. Um, but very much, the world went into lockdown, and I, was having trouble getting into the studio to finish the album. And then once we finished the album, then I had to find a team to release the music. And then just as I found my team, just as, we were talking about a photo shoot and getting everything ready to go, boom, we went into our second lockdown.
Mm.
And so then I had to wait again. So for me, by the time the album got released, I was very much past everything
Right.
that I'd gone through. But I felt like I looked at the songs on the album just before the album came out, and I went, I don't have to release all these songs. I can keep some of these songs. And I just thought, you know what? Every song on that album has its place, has its story, has a reason. And I felt that removing any of the songs actually kind of removed that time capsule for me.
Mhm.
Anyway, I'm not sure how it would sound to anybody else, but for me, it just seemed like it was missing a piece of the puzzle.
Mhm.
So I very much decided to give it its time. I felt like it really needed its time. And I'm so proud of it, and I'm so glad that I did it, and I'm so glad that it is out there, and it is doing what it needs to do. But I have been writing like
Yeah.
absolute crazy for the like since 2020. And I have so much that I want to share. And for me, it's so much with releasing music right now. I'm like, I just have so much, and I just want to release it, and I just want people to hear it. And I think that my love and passion for writing is at its strongest that it's ever been. And so that's why, when it came to releasing my next single, we talked about releasing something from Hidden Spirit. And, I said, as much as I'm happy to do that, I think I'm ready to show a new side of me that
Mhm.
is, where I am now versus where I am when I was going through that situation.
Yeah, which brings us to Bare Feet. Because yes, I did presume I heard you were releasing a single, I thought, oh well, it must be from Hidden Spirit because the album hasn't been out that long. It's a completely new song, and it is a summery song. So what's
Yeah.
the story behind it?
Yeah, you can definitely tell I'm like, no, I can't wait. I have so much music. Just let me release music. So I think that for me will always be, something that, I'll do. It might not be the smartest decision, business wise to make, but people can listen to the album, and now it's time for new music. So with this one, I wrote this. I mean, this one has been on quite a journey. I originally wrote this during the first few weeks of lockdown, the first lockdown, because I went back to Adelaide, and I didn't make it quite before the cutoff, so I had to go into 2 weeks of isolation. I missed the cutoff going across the border by like 2 hours, I think. Yeah. But it is about the last night that I spent. I was working on an island as the musician in Queensland, and you know, it was it was the weirdest thing watching the world go into this lockdown while I was on an island that was 1.3 kilometers by 500 meters with less than 100 people on the island, I'd say. But yet the whole world is closing down. And you know when we were told we all had to leave, and I'd fallen in love with a boy on the album, not on the album, on a
It's an interesting slip. Maybe some
yeah.
songs.
On the island, I'd fallen in love with a boy on the island, and he was staying, and I
Yeah.
had to go.
Mhm.
He was staying on the island to help keep it up and clean and things. And other friends that I'd made were going back to Canada or Japan, or whatever country that they were from. Everybody had to leave. Everybody had to go home. And on the last night, we held the biggest, funnest party I've ever experienced. It was so much fun, and nobody wanted that sun to rise. Nobody wanted the day that like the night to end and the day to happen, because we didn't know what was going to happen. We were all like, there was a little bit of scaredness of like, oh my God, what are we waking up to tomorrow? So it was just fun, and I was in love. And, I just wanted to capture that moment and that feeling of just absolute freedom, because you just don't know what's going to happen next. So you may as well enjoy the moment.
Mhm.
And as we came to release it, I kind of questioned. I was like, it got a rewrite. It has been rewritten this year. And I kind of questioned. I was going, oh, I know it is about, COVID, and I know that we've started to move on from COVID. But very much what I'm seeing on the other side of COVID is, at all the gigs that I do, is that people aren't dancing so much.
Right.
And I think part of me thinks that that's because we were told we weren't, we've just spent the last 2 years being told we weren't allowed to dance.
Mhm.
So I wanted to release this song because now I'm trying to say, like, let's just have a good time. Like, we've just spent the last few years, just being locked up, being cooped up. And I think we just need to have, I don't think we need permission, but here is the permission to go out, have a good time, go and dance, have fun, And so that's very much what bare feet is for me now. So it's kind of got two. I think that also answers your question about, how a song will continue with me onwards. It will always find a different meaning moving
Yeah.
through the times.
I do think adults need to give themselves permission to dance. Kids do it quite instinctually, and then they get self-conscious about it because adults make them self-conscious.
Yeah.
And I wonder partly if lockdowns and not dancing has made everyone even more self-conscious about expressing themselves that way. So yeah, I think it's great when another adult gives people permission to get up and dance.
It's always that first person. You just need that first person to get up on the dance floor, and then you need that second person.
Yes, I'm normally the first person on the dance floor because I
Yay, we love the first person. My mum is always the first person on the dance floor. So I think I get it from her because I'm always the first person on the dance floor
yeah.
as well.
Well, because people do follow. And
Yeah.
yeah, so if you have a track that encourages that, so much the better. I will say, though, at several of the gigs that I've seen you play at, there has been a lot of movement because they are very upbeat, entertaining gigs, whether that's been with Amber or with, you had Courtney Kyle, Abby Ferris, the three of you did a short tour called Fierce and Fearless. So I'm wondering if you're planning to do any more shows, the three of you?
Yes, with the two of us, Abby has had some other opportunities, so
Right.
she has decided to step away. But Courtney and I have decided to continue on the Fierce and Fearless tour,
Right.
which is very exciting. We have our first headlining tour of Fierce and Fearless at the Tamworth Country Music Festival. This is the first time we've ever headlined.
Mm-hmm.
So that is on Sunday, 21st of January at Moonshiners at 7
Right.
p.m. And that's going to include some very special guests, which I will keep under wraps. You have to come along to see who they are, and it's with a full band, which is really exciting as well. And we've just locked in. I am yet to announce on social media, but I can announce that we are performing at the Laycock Street Theatre in Gosford on the 13th of April next year as well. So that's our second date that we've locked in, and there's a few more that are in the works that we're just waiting to get locked in. But we're excited for next year, and Courtney's great to work with. I think that we both share very much a similar viewpoint in life. We're both very positive people, and we're both very passionate about music. So I absolutely love working with her, and I look forward to more Fierce and Fearless shows in the future.
I imagine that you have to schedule those a fair way ahead just because your schedule would be booked pretty far ahead, I would guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But it's always nice and surprising when something kind of drops into your lap. So we make it work sometimes.
Now, just going back to the lockdown time or just coming out of lockdown, what were the first shows you played after that?
Oh, good question. You'd think I'd remember. I want to say, like, I did a lot at the Old Manly Boat Shed, which is an amazing venue. I absolutely love performing there, and that's got such a rich history of, all in the 80s when, all of those Australian bands were, coming up, and, they had their route that they would always do, and the Old Manly Boat Shed was one of those places that they would always play at. And that is definitely a place when it's very interesting. I've played there, during COVID when, only a limited amount of people were allowed to go in there, and, you weren't allowed to dance. And then I've been in there with a band, and there's probably, 200 people in there, and it's so packed and everybody's getting up and dancing. So, I spent a lot of time there, especially coming out of COVID. I'd say that was probably the main place, but just a lot of just little places around Sydney. The Squires Landing has been another venue that has been really supportive of me and my music. So it's and then Amber and I started working together. God, I think it's been about a year and a half now since we've started working together. And so, yeah, she would definitely be on the list of shows that were just after, lockdown. I think maybe 6 months, maybe after, but I think getting on the road with her.
Partly why I'm asking is because given the number of shows you play and the different types you play, your gig fitness is extraordinary.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm interested in how long it took you to get to the point where you could be travel. So it's travel, it's those big high energy shows that Amber has, where you're also the support act, and you're doing a range of things. You're playing fiddle, you're playing guitar, you're singing. So for you coming out of that, did it feel like it took a while to get yourself to the point where you had that sense of, yes, this is a momentum, I can keep going?
Good question. I think I was very, very lucky during COVID, as a musician, that survived being a full-time musician,
Mm.
through COVID. And one of the reasons why I was able to survive was because I loop, like Ed Sheeran doing looping. So, during a time when venues couldn't afford a band because they could only have so many people per square meter. Um, so, that was really hard for them to be making money to be able to afford to put music on, and
Mhm.
especially not a band. And even if they did have enough money for a band, most of the time their stages are too small to be able to keep each and every five band members 1.5 meters apart.
Right.
So where I was able to kind of come in on that was that with looping, I can make it sound like a band's there by, hitting the guitar and making drum sound and putting down a bass line and playing guitar plus singing plus the fiddle. Um, when times were tough, I could step in and do that. It's not something that I would normally never ever be like, you can have a solo artist instead of a band, because I would never ever suggest that. But during the COVID times, for that specific reason, that also just kept my head above water financially.
Right.
Um, and it kept me gig fit as well. Um, I know that it looks like I've on paper that I've only been around since last year February, but I've been playing violin since I was 5 years old, and playing professionally since I was 17. So I've been around enough that I think the gig fitness is something that I think is really, really important to make sure that you stay gig
Mhm.
fit. So even when we were in those complete lockdowns, I was still practicing every day and writing and learning, and and just because I was, like you say, I was scared that I was going to lose my gig fitness. And I think that, when we did come back, that was something that you do have to, even with practicing, because a lot of it's the lugging the gear, a lot
Yeah.
of it's the fitness that you need in order to carry the speakers and carry the stands and the leads and set it all up and pack it all down. And it is something that you've got to keep fit for. So yeah, even just exercising during lockdown when we couldn't even leave the house, very important. Yeah.
And also managing energy levels, because that's not something that you can be taught, and it's not something that you can necessarily train for. It only comes through experience. So but yeah, anyone who's seen you perform can tell you, as you said, on paper you may have been around only a little bit. That's definitely not the case. Whenever I've seen you perform, it's like, this is someone who knows exactly what she is doing.
I think and again, and it comes down to that I just didn't see myself as a writer. So I feel very, very blessed that I have been able to do so much in a short amount of time, because it wasn't something that I thought that, if that makes any sense. I absolutely just love this, and I'm so passionate about it, and I'm so grateful that for the opportunities that I've been given. And I think that everything that I've been through, with the training, and going to university and things like that, it doesn't get you ready for the reality of what gig life is, especially with someone incredible like Amber Lawrence, who is gigging every single week in multiple cities, in multiple states. I think there was one weekend we might have gone to Dubbo, and then we were in Queensland, and then we're in Melbourne within 3 days. Like, it was, there are days, those are things that you can't get taught, definitely. But I think that I think that going to these courses helped me, get taught the arc, and especially Actors Centre Australia, they very much taught me how to commit myself and to be strong and to, be serious and professional. And I think that that's, learning that professionalism is something that also you need to learn on top of the music and the writing. And I mean, there's so many aspects to it. I mean, on top of that, you've got to have your own business, and be able to, you're not just a musician in this industry, and especially anymore, like now with social media, you're your own marketing person, and you're your own accountant, and
Mm.
your own booker. That's it, and it's a big job, but I feel so grateful to be waking up and doing this every single day of my life, and kind of pinch myself, pinch me, Sophie.
It does seem to me like you did put everything in place in a timely fashion. You didn't rush it. You actually put these different components there, and then when the time was right for you to create songs, everything was there to do it. And here you are writing and releasing still more new music. So you have the show with Courtney in Tamworth on the 21st. I imagine there are other Tamworth shows you're doing.
Yes, yes. I'm performing the Country Under the Vines. That's on the same day. That's actually earlier in the day, but that's for the Ronald McDonald House charity. There's Andrew Farris is in that as well as we've got quite a few different artists on that day, but all the proceeds go to Ronald McDonald House, which I think is a really great charity to be able to do this for. So I'm really excited about that. And both Courtney and I are doing the Tamworth Opry as well, which is really exciting. And there'll be a fan zone for both of us, and, a big golden guitar. And I think there's still a few things kind of getting put into place. And yeah, you'll definitely be able to see me with Amber as well. I'll be opening for her Tamworth show.
So people can keep an eye on your social media and or website. And at the time we're speaking, the official program has not been released because I'm waiting for my hard copy. So I know that, but once people get the official program, they can see where you are. And in the meantime, I look forward to still more new music from you, because clearly there will be other singles to come.
Oh yes, I'm very excited. You can tell. There's more, and I'm excited.
So good to talk to you, Bonnie. Thanks for your time.
So good to talk to you too, Sophie. Thank you for having me.